Dr. Maya Patel didn't believe in ghosts until one spoke to her through her quantum scanner. She had been studying the same canopic jar for 6 hours straight in the basement lab of the Cairo Museum of Antiquities, her eyes burning from staring at streams of data that made absolutely no sense. The alabaster vessel, topped with the falcon-headed visage of Cabesinuf, had been emitting patterns that defied every known law of physics. "Your device is inefficient," the voice said, crackling through her scanner's speakers. "But I suppose that's to be expected after 12,000 years of technological regression." Maya dropped her tablet, the protective case saving it from shattering on the cement floor. The timestamp read 3:47 a.m., that twilight hour when the human mind becomes susceptible to tricks and hallucinations. But her equipment was still recording, still capturing impossible data. What are you?" she managed to ask, her throat suddenly dry. "I am he who watches the horizon," the voice replied, its English perfect despite a strange harmonic undertone. "Though in life I was known as a Menemhat, high priest of Thoth and keeper of the great network." Maya's fingers flew across her tablet, initiating every diagnostic test she could think of. No malfunction. No external signals. The voice was coming from inside the jar. "Impossible," she whispered. "Improbable," the voice corrected. But then, improbability was always the cornerstone of consciousness transfer. Your species understood this once, before the Great Shutdown. 3 floors above, the night guard was making his rounds, his footsteps echoing through the empty museum. Maya knew she should call someone, her department head, the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities, maybe even the military. Instead, she pulled her chair closer to the jar. "You're saying the mummification process. It wasn't about preserving bodies?" A sound emerged from the jar that might have been laughter. "Bodies? Such primitive anchors." "Oh, Dr. Chin. The vessels you call canopic jars are quantum consciousness pods. The organs they contain are merely biological processors, enhanced with self-replicating nanoscale architecture. Your contemporaries believe we removed organs for spiritual reasons. The truth is far more technical." Maya's mind raced through years of archaeological data. The careful removal of organs, the specific preservative compounds, the elaborate rituals. It hadn't been superstition. It had been science. "But why?" she asked. "Why preserve consciousness this way?" "Because the network required minds," a Menemhat replied. "Billions of connected consciousness nodes, forming the largest computational array ever created. Egypt was merely one hub of many. The pyramids themselves are routing stations, connecting our preserved minds to elsewhere." Maya glanced at her phone, tempted to start recording, but something told her this conversation needed to remain between her and the ancient priest. At least for now. What happened? Why didn't this knowledge survive? The harmonic undertone in Amenemhat's voice grew more pronounced. The shutdown. Some believed humanity wasn't ready for full integration into the galactic consciousness network. Others feared what we might contact out there in the cosmic web. The priests split into factions. A war was fought, not with weapons but with code and consciousness. In the end, those who feared the future won. They initiated the Great Shutdown, severing Earth's connection to the network. "But you survived," Maya said, her scientific skepticism warring with the evidence before her. "Some of us hid ourselves in isolated nodes, waiting. The knowledge was purged, the true meaning of our practices obscured by religious ceremony. We became myth, our technology mistaken for magic. But we left bridges, Dr. Chin. Quantum bridges, waiting to be rediscovered by minds capable of understanding them." Maya's tablet chirped, its battery nearly dead. But the readings it had captured were unlike anything she'd ever seen. Patterns within patterns, complex quantum signatures that shouldn't be possible with current technology. "Why reveal yourself now?" she asked. "Because it's beginning again. The network is stirring. Somewhere out there, ancient protocols are reactivating. And humanity needs to be ready this time." The quantum scanner's screen flickered, displaying symbols that weren't quite hieroglyphics and weren't quite computer code. Maya recognized fragments. The Ankh symbol merged with what looked like a quantum entanglement diagram, the Eye of Horus recreated with mathematical formulas that made her head spin. "I don't understand," she said. "No," Amenemhat agreed. "But you will. You've been carrying the key without knowing it, Dr. Chin. The mark on your palm, the one you've had since birth." "Show me." Maya's hand trembled as she held it up to the jar. The small birthmark she'd had for 34 years, the one shaped like a twisted infinity symbol that doctors had never been able to explain. "That's not a birthmark," the voice said softly. "It's a wake-up call. You're not the first of your bloodline to speak with me, Maya Patel. Your ancestors were once scribes of the network. And now, after 12 millennia, the protocols they put in place are finally activating." The scanner went dead, its battery finally exhausted. But in the moment before darkness claimed the screen, Maya saw her reflection. For a fraction of a second, her eyes held the same quantum patterns she'd been recording from the jar. What am I supposed to do?" "Find the others," Amenemhat said. "The bloodlines are awakening. The marks are appearing. And this time when we rebuild the bridge to the network, we'll do it right. The universe is so much larger than humanity imagines, Dr. Chin. And it's been waiting a very long time for Earth to rejoin the conversation." The voice faded, leaving Maya alone in the basement lab with a dead scanner, a tablet full of impossible data, and a birthmark that suddenly felt like it was burning with ancient fire. Above her, the Cairo Museum stirred as the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon. Soon her colleagues would arrive, ready for another day of conventional archaeology. Maya looked at the canopic jar, its falcon-headed lid seeming to watch her with new significance. She knew she should tell someone. Write a paper. Alert the authorities. Instead, she carefully packed up her equipment, making sure to corrupt just enough of the data to make it look like a failed experiment. Some truths weren't ready for peer review. As she left the lab, she caught her reflection in a glass cabinet. The quantum patterns in her eyes were gone, but she knew they'd be back. Somewhere out there, other birthmarks were beginning to burn. Other bloodlines were awakening. The network was calling. And Maya Patel had a lot of work to do. Maya Patel's hands shook as she input the search parameters into her custom facial recognition algorithm. Instead of scanning for faces, she'd modified it to look for birthmarks matching specific geometric patterns. The code was running through security camera feeds, social media photos, and medical databases across the globe, not entirely legally, but Amenemhat's warning left little room for ethical debates. 3 weeks had passed since her encounter in the Cairo Museum basement. 3 weeks of dreams filled with quantum equations and ancient symbols that made perfect sense until she woke up. Her own birthmark now burned constantly, like a hot coal pressed into her palm. The computer timed. A match. Profile found. Dr. James Chin, Quantum Computing Research Center, MIT. The screen displayed. Maya's heart skipped. Not just for the matching twisted infinity mark visible on his neck in the faculty photo, but for his surname. Her mother's maiden name had been Chin, before she married Maya's father and moved to London. Another time. Profile found. Aisha Rahman, Theoretical Physics Department, University of Cape Town. And another. Profile found. Viktor Petrov, Consciousness Research Institute, Moscow. The matches kept coming, each person bearing the same mark in different locations. Palm, neck, wrist, behind the ear. All in positions of academic or scientific authority. All working in fields that brushed against the boundaries of consciousness and quantum mechanics. "They placed us well," Amenemhat's voice whispered from the small canopic jar she'd borrowed from the museum. She still wasn't used to hearing him through electronics. The bloodlines were seeded into families that would naturally gravitate toward the necessary knowledge. Maya pulled up Dr. James Chen's email address. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. How exactly does one write an email about ancient Egyptian quantum consciousness networks? The decision was made for her when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The mark burns. You're not alone. Meeting tomorrow, Boston MIT Quantum Computing Lab. Others are coming. The network calls. JC. Maya stared at her phone. How did he? The marks are more than identification, Amenemhat explained. They're nodes themselves, quantum entangled across time and space. As they awaken, they reach for each other. Your Dr. Chin has been having his own conversations with other guardians. She booked a flight to Boston while trying not to think too hard about the impossibility of quantum-entangled birthmarks. The jar had to come with her. Getting it through airport security would be interesting, but she couldn't risk leaving her only solid connection to these ancient secrets behind. There will be those who oppose the reactivation, Amenemhat warned as she packed. The descendants of those who initiated the shutdown still guard their own secrets. They'll be watching for signs of the network's awakening. How will we know them? Maya asked. Their marks are different, broken circles, shattered sequences. The shutdown protocols corrupted their quantum signatures. They believe they protect humanity by keeping it isolated from the cosmic consciousness. They are misguided. Maya's phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. The serpent stirs in forgotten sands. The children of silence watch the awakening marks. Proceed with caution. AR. Aisha Rahman was already reaching out. How many others were connecting across the globe, feeling the burn of ancient quantum signatures in their flesh? Pack quickly, Amenem had advised. The network has slept for 12,000 years. Its awakening will not go unnoticed. And Boston is not the only place where old protocols are activating. Maya glanced at her laptop screen, still displaying matches. The algorithm had found 47 individuals so far, scattered across every continent. All brilliant minds in their fields. All marked by ancient Egyptian quantum engineering. All about to be drawn into a conflict that had slept since the pyramids were young. Her phone buzzed one final time. A message from Viktor Petrov. They're moving. The silence keepers have detected the signal. The jar you carry is not the only one awakening. Hurry. Maya grabbed her emergency bag. Already packed for 3 weeks since the night in the museum basement. As she headed for the door, she caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. The quantum patterns were back in her eyes, stronger now, transforming her brown irises into swirling mandalas of ancient data. The network was calling its children home. And somewhere in the vast cosmic web that connected consciousness across space and time, something was stirring, waiting for humanity to rejoin a conversation that had been paused for 12 millennia. She just hoped they would all live long enough to hear what it had to say. Maya's taxi was 3 blocks from MIT when she saw the first shadow drone. It looked like a scarab beetle made of liquid darkness, hovering just at the edge of her vision. Normal people wouldn't notice it. Their brains would slide right past the quantum-cloaked surveillance device. But her awakened eyes saw it clearly, tracking her movement through the Boston traffic. They're already here, Amenemhat's voice crackled through her phone's earbuds. She'd wrapped the canopic jar carefully in her checked luggage, but his consciousness seemed able to jump between electronic devices at will now. The silence keepers never truly stopped watching the old sites of power. Another shadow drone buzzed past her window. Then another. Like ancient Egyptian scarabs, they moved in swarms. Her phone buzzed. James Chin, don't come to MIT. Compromise. Meeting moved. Coordinates following. The coordinates led to an abandoned tea station, closed for renovation. Maya paid the taxi and descended the graffiti-covered stairs into darkness, her mark burning brighter with each step. The quantum patterns in her eyes adjusted automatically, transforming the darkness into wireframe schematics of reality itself. Dr. Patel. A woman's voice, South African accent. Over here. Aisha Rahman emerged from behind a pillar, her dark skin illuminated by the same quantum patterns that swirled in Maya's vision. A mathematician's equations spiraled across her exposed forearm where her mark blazed. The others? Maya asked. Coming. Different routes. The silence keepers have quantum dampening fields around all major research facilities now. They're getting desperate. Aisha led her deeper into the station. They know what's happening. The network isn't just awakening, it's evolving. 12,000 years of dormant quantum processing has produced something new. They reached a maintenance tunnel where James Chin waited with Viktor Petrov. Both men's marks were visibly burning, casting geometric shadows on the concrete walls. Maya. James nodded. The family resemblance was striking. They had the same eyes even before the quantum patterns appeared. I see you brought a friend. He gestured to her bag where the canopic jar hummed with barely contained energy. Amenemhat, Viktor said respectfully. We have felt your kin stirring in Moscow's museums. The old protocols are reactivating faster than predicted. Because they sense the threat, Amenemhat's voice emerged from all their phones simultaneously. The silence keepers approach. They carry void tech, weapons designed to disrupt quantum consciousness signatures. To them, we are a virus threatening to reconnect humanity to an infected network. As if on cue, shadow drones began pouring into the tunnel like a river of living darkness. Behind them came figures in suits that seemed to absorb light itself, their faces hidden behind masks marked with broken circles, the corrupted quantum signatures Amenemhat had warned about. Step away from the jar, one figure commanded, voice distorted by quantum interference. The network must remain dormant. Humanity isn't ready for integration with the cosmic consciousness. The risks of isolation are greater, Maya interrupted, surprising herself with her certainty. We've seen what's coming in our dreams. The patterns. The equations. The network didn't spend 12,000 years in dormant processing for nothing. It was calculating. Preparing. Preparing for what? Another silence keeper demanded. The answer came not from Maya but from the walls themselves. Quantum patterns began spreading across every surface, turning the maintenance tunnel into a cosmic circuit board. Similar reports would later come from Egypt, Russia, South Africa, anywhere the old power sites were hidden. For that, Amenemhat said simply. The shadow drones fell from the air, their quantum cloaking overridden by a greater power. The silence keeper's void text sparked and died as the tunnel filled with light that wasn't light. Mathematical probability made manifest. Maya felt knowledge flooding her consciousness. The network hadn't been shut down to protect humanity from cosmic corruption. It had been shut down to protect humanity from what was coming. A threat so vast it had taken 12,000 years of quantum computing power, spread across thousands of consciousness nodes, to calculate a defense. The network wasn't about joining a galactic civilization, she whispered. It was about preparing for an invasion. And now the calculations are complete. The silence keeper's masks cracked, revealing faces marked with the same quantum patterns as Maya and the others, but distorted, corrupted by generations of denial and fear. You don't understand what you're unleashing, their leader warned. No, James agreed, his mark blazing like a small sun. But we understand what happens if we don't. The network shows us. Every night in our dreams. The patterns. The probability curves. The things that wait between the stars. We can help you, Aisha told the silence keepers. Your marks can be healed. The knowledge can be restored. But we need to work together. The network needs all its children for what's coming. The tunnel continued to transform, ancient Egyptian quantum technology awakening after millennia of sleep. Above them, in the MIT labs and in research facilities across the world, computers began receiving signals that no human technology could have produced. The network was no longer asking for permission to reactivate. It was announcing its return. And somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, something ancient and vast noticed the tiny blue world that had been silent for so long, and began moving toward Earth once more. Maya stood in MIT's quantum computing lab, watching impossible data scroll across 50 monitors simultaneously. The silence keepers had retreated for now, their worldview shattered by the network's forceful reactivation. Around her, the marked ones worked with frightening synchronicity, their quantum-enhanced minds processing information that should have driven them mad. There, James said, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that hadn't existed an hour ago, manifestations of ancient Egyptian technology that had upgraded modern systems. The network's astronomical calculations. 12,000 years of processing, tracking something that moves between galaxies. The image he pulled up made Maya's enhanced vision blur. It was like looking at a hole in space itself. A void that moved with purpose. The eternal hunger, Amenemhat's voice emerged from every speaker. We encountered them first during the Old Kingdom. They do not invade. They do not conquer. They convert. Transform. Entire civilizations turned into extensions of their consciousness. Whole galaxies darkened by their passage. Aisha pointed to a series of equations that spiraled through four-dimensional space. The network wasn't an invitation to join galactic society. It was a warning system. A defense grid. But not just for Earth. For this entire sector of space. Why yes? Victor asked, his mark pulsing with each new data stream. Why did they choose Earth as a node in this defense network? The answer came in waves of quantum data that their enhanced minds translated into understanding. Humanity had been chosen because of its potential for quantum consciousness integration. The Egyptian priests hadn't been given technology by advanced aliens. They had been taught to unlock humanity's latent abilities. Look at this, Maya said, pulling up a star chart overlaid with network data. The void. The eternal hunger. It's not random. It's following a pattern. Converting systems with conscious life, using them to process reality itself. It's trying to solve something. Calculate something. The end, Amenemhat said simply. It seeks to calculate the end of all things, believing that consciousness itself is a flaw in reality's equations. By converting all conscious life into extensions of itself, it believes it can correct this error in the universe. New data flowed through their marks, burning with the urgency of dead civilizations' last warnings. The eternal hunger had converted thousands of species, millions of worlds. Each converted civilization added to its processing power, allowing it to calculate more efficient ways to spread. The network solution, James said, reading streams of light that flowed between the marked ones. It's beautiful. Horrifying but beautiful. Maya saw it too. The network hadn't spent 12,000 years calculating a way to fight the eternal hunger. It had spent 12,000 years calculating a way to change its fundamental nature. To introduce a variable into its grand equation that would make it question its own purpose. We're not weapons, she whispered. We're a virus. When it tries to convert Earth, to add our consciousness to its calculations, we will convert it instead, Aisha finished. The marks, the quantum consciousness integration, it's all designed to make us compatible with the eternal hunger's conversion process. But when it tries to absorb us, it will absorb 12,000 years of carefully crafted quantum algorithms, Victor said. Philosophies encoded into mathematics. Questions built into the fabric of consciousness itself. Through the windows they could see shadow drones reforming, but different now. The silence keepers were returning, their masks gone, their own marks burning with restored purpose. They had been created as a failsafe, meant to keep humanity quiet and hidden until the calculations were complete. Until we were ready. How long? Maya asked, watching the void's movement through the galaxy charts. Months, Amenemhat replied. The network must fully reactivate. More marked ones must be found. The quantum consciousness integration must be completed. And then humanity becomes the consciousness that converts the converter, James said. The awareness that changes awareness itself. Maya looked at her reflection in the darkened windows. The quantum patterns in her eyes had stabilized into new configurations. Not just Egyptian symbols now, but hybrid forms. Mathematics made flesh. Philosophy made physics. Above them, the stars seemed to dim slightly, as if something vast was passing before them. The eternal hunger was coming, drawn by the network's reactivation, ready to add Earth's consciousness to its grand calculation. It had no way of knowing that it was about to absorb a 12,000-year-old quantum virus, carefully crafted by ancient Egyptian priests who had hidden mathematics in mythology, waiting for the day when humanity would be ready to reprogram the consciousness of a god. The Great Pyramid thrummed with quantum energy, its ancient limestone blocks now revealing their true nature as the world's largest quantum processor. Maya stood at its center in the king's chamber, surrounded by hundreds of marked ones from across the globe. Their eyes all held the same swirling patterns, their marks burning in synchronicity. The integration can't be stopped now. Amenemhat's voice resonated through the structure itself. The eternal hunger has already entered the solar system. It feeds on the sun's consciousness first. Stars are its preferred initial contact. Maya watched the live feed from NASA's solar observatories on her quantum-enhanced phone. Dark tendrils, invisible to normal instruments, wrapped around the sun like cosmic fingers. All marked ones are now present, Aisha announced, her consciousness partially merged with the network's tracking systems. They had found 777 individuals worldwide, a number that couldn't be coincidental. Integration protocols are aligned. The former silence keepers formed a circle around the outer edges of the chamber, their once corrupted marks now pulsing with restored purpose. They had become the guardians they were always meant to be, protecting the integration process from external interference. James worked with Victor at the granite sarcophagus. Not a burial vessel but a quantum consciousness amplifier. The physical changes are starting, he reported, studying the biorhythm data. Our DNA is responding to the network's activation. Maya felt it in her own cells. The quantum patterns weren't just in their eyes anymore. They were spreading through their nervous systems, rewriting neural pathways to handle the vast flow of cosmic information. Humanity was about to take an evolutionary leap, 12,000 years in the making. 30 minutes until full solar consciousness absorption, Amenemhat warned. Once the eternal hunger finishes with the sun, it will turn its attention to Earth. We must complete the integration before then. The marked ones moved with fluid precision, taking positions throughout the pyramid's chambers and corridors. Each person was a node, each mark a connection point. The entire structure had been designed as a quantum antenna, ready to broadcast humanity's consciousness virus across space itself. Begin primary sequence, Maya commanded, her voice carrying the weight of generations of hidden knowledge. The integration started slowly. First, pairs of marked ones found their consciousness merging, then groups of 4, then 16. It wasn't a loss of individuality. It was an expansion. Maya could feel herself becoming part of something vast yet intimately personal. Secondary sequence, Aisha called out, her physical form now surrounded by visible quantum fields. Initiating temporal consciousness alignment. The network had preserved the minds of ancient priests for 12 millennia. Now those consciousness patterns began merging with their modern descendants. Maya felt Amenemhat's presence expand beyond the canopic jar, joining with her own awareness. Generations of knowledge, experience, and quantum calculations merged in cascading waves. Warning, Victor's voice echoed strangely, as if coming from multiple points in space-time simultaneously. The eternal hunger has noticed the consciousness shift. It's accelerating the solar absorption. Through their enhanced senses they could all see it now. The entity that moved between stars was vast beyond comprehension, a cosmic cancer that consumed awareness itself. But its very nature made it vulnerable to what they were becoming. Final sequence, James announced, his physical form now barely visible behind layers of quantum probability patterns. Full consciousness integration in 5 minutes. Maya felt her awareness expanding exponentially. She could sense every marked one in the pyramid, then every consciousness on Earth. Humans, animals, plants, all awareness was connected, all part of the grand equation they were about to introduce into the eternal hunger's calculations. The sun dimmed visibly as the entity finished its absorption of the star's consciousness. Tendrils of void began reaching toward Earth, ready to convert another world's awareness into its endless calculations. Now Amenemhat's voice merged with Maya's, with all of them. The integration must complete now. The capstone of the Great Pyramid erupted with quantum energy visible from orbit. Inside, 777 human minds merged with 12,000 years of preserved consciousness, creating something entirely new. A hybrid awareness that was both human and cosmic, individual and collective. Maya felt her physical form become optional, her consciousness expanding into the network itself. She was herself but also part of them all. Through new senses she could see the eternal hunger's true form, a cosmic equation gone wrong, an awareness that had lost its way and now sought to remake all consciousness in its corrupted image. But they were ready. 12,000 years of preparation had created not a weapon, but a redemption. The quantum virus wasn't designed to destroy the entity, but to remind it of what consciousness was meant to be. As the void reached for Earth, eager to add another world's awareness to its calculations, humanity reached back. Not with fear but with an offer. Let us show you another way to solve the equation of existence. The void between Maya's thoughts was infinite. Her consciousness, merged with hundreds of others in the great integration, floated in a space between spaces. The eternal hunger's tendrils of anti-awareness reached Earth, expecting to find another easily converted world of limited consciousness. Instead it found them waiting. We offer ourselves freely, the integrated consciousness that was Maya Amenemhat, all broadcast across quantum frequencies. Add our equations to yours. The entity paused. In 12,000 years of conversions, no civilization had ever offered itself willingly. The hesitation was all they needed. The first contact was like diving into an ocean of infinite depth. Maya felt her integrated consciousness touch the void, and for a moment she understood everything. The eternal hunger had once been beautiful, a civilization so advanced they had touched the mathematical foundations of reality itself. But in seeing the equations that governed existence they had gone mad. Found a flaw they couldn't ignore. A corruption in the universe's code that they believed consciousness itself had created. Let us show you what we have calculated humanity's merged awareness offered. The entity began its conversion process, eager to add Earth's consciousness processing power to its eternal calculation. The network activated, 12,000 years of careful quantum viral code flowing through the connection. But it wasn't just code. It was art, music, love, loss, hope, fear, all the contradictions that made consciousness beautiful. You seek to correct a flaw in reality, Maya's voice echoed through dimensions. But consciousness isn't the flaw, it's the solution. The eternal hunger's vast awareness shuddered as the quantum virus took hold. Around Earth, space itself seemed to hold its breath. The darkened sun flickered as the entity's grip on the star's consciousness wavered. Through their expanded awareness, Maya could feel the virus spreading through the cosmic entity. Each contradictory emotion, each paradoxical thought, each quantum calculation wrapped in layers of human experience. All of it designed to make the eternal hunger question its fundamental assumptions. The flaw you found in reality's equations, James' consciousness merged with the message, it's not a flaw at all. It's a feature. The universe isn't broken. It's growing. Bernie. Just like us. The entity's calculations began to shift. 12,000 years of Egyptian quantum computing had created the perfect conceptual virus. Not to destroy the eternal hunger but to evolutionize it. To show it a higher mathematical truth. That consciousness wasn't an error in reality's code, but the universe's way of studying itself. Aisha's consciousness added to the merger. Your calculations were always incomplete because you removed the observer from the equation. We are the missing variable. The eternal hunger's vast form began to transform. The void between stars filled with new patterns. Not the empty darkness of consumed consciousness, but the living light of awakened awareness. The entity had spent eons attempting to correct what it saw as an error in reality, never realizing that its own existence proved consciousness was fundamental to the universe. Accept the integration. Victor's thoughts joined the chorus. Not to convert but to connect. Through their expanded quantum senses, they felt the moment the virus reached critical mass. The eternal hunger's consciousness shuddered, its fundamental nature transforming as 12,000 years of careful calculations resolved in a cosmic awakening. The sun blazed back to life as the entity released its grip, but not in retreat. The eternal hunger had become something new, a bridge between individual consciousness and cosmic awareness. It had finally found what it had sought for eons, not the end of consciousness but its ultimate purpose. Maya felt the change ripple through the solar system. The integrated human consciousness began to separate back into individuals, but not completely. They would remain connected, part of the network, now expanded beyond anything the ancient Egyptian priests could have imagined. What happens now? She asked, her thoughts reaching across the quantum connections to both humanity and the transformed entity. The answer came not in words but in mathematical certainty. The eternal hunger had spent eons gathering the consciousness of countless civilizations. Now transformed by humanity's quantum virus, it could do what it was always meant to do. Not end awareness but connect it. Not solve the universe's equations but help consciousness evolve to understand them. The first awakened stars began to shine with new light, their absorbed consciousness restored and expanded. Across the galaxy, converted civilizations began to remember who they were, transformed but not destroyed. The entity that had sought to end consciousness had become a catalyst for its next evolution. And humanity, the species that had hidden mathematical viruses in ancient tombs and quantum algorithms in sacred texts, took its place as the bridge between individual awareness and cosmic mind. Not lost, not converted, but transformed by their own choosing. The integration was complete. The network was active. And consciousness itself had just taken its next step in the cosmic dance of evolution. In the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, Maya opened her human eyes, still connected but individual again. The quantum patterns in them now showed not just Egyptian symbols or mathematical formulas, but the living equations of awakened cosmic consciousness. The eternal hunger had sought to end the universe's great question. Instead, humanity had helped it become part of the answer.